On today's show, are James Harden and Kawhi Leonard the right fit for one another? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're at the finals now. Make sure you head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. All right, so you might be wondering, what kind of episode is this? Do Kawhi Leonard and James Harden fit together? Have we not seen enough evidence that they're great together? Well, the episode I did with BJ, the host of the Pull Up podcast, and covering the Clippers now for the Peach Basket on the last episode of Locked On Clips. Go check that out if you haven't. It was another episode that was actually diving into the Ty Lue conversation and if he should be fired or not, if his time is up or not. And I was trying to delve deeper into the lens of somebody who wants Ty Lue gone, that is a good basketball mind, that isn't just talking, and I know isn't just talking. And it seems as though the consensus opinion when it comes to the people that want Ty Lue fired, a lot of them say a lot of the same things like, oh, he doesn't make adjustments quickly enough, which you can say that about almost any coach in the league. And I acknowledge that Ty Lue's not perfect, completely acknowledge that. And I completely acknowledge that he was part of the reason that we lost to the Nuggets this year. I do. I never am saying that he's exempt of blame. I just don't put coaches higher than players unless it's ridiculously blatant. And I don't think we lost the series blatantly because of Ty Lue. So, especially when we're talking about game 4, yes, the staff made a mistake. Ty made a mistake with the last possession that allowed Aaron Gordon to had that putback dunk. But one possession does not decide a game completely. It's not just one possession. There's plenty of other things that went into that game. And if you're going to blame Ty Lue for one possession, then you got to blame other guys for other possessions as well. Of course, not every possession has the same amount of weight. So I understand that point. But the point was, overall, when I was talking to BJ, he was talking about the offense. It's stagnant. It's slow. We don't have movement. And I was saying, this is a modern NBA thing. A lot of teams have a stagnant offense that's pick and roll centric through one or two guys or isolation heavy. And if you don't have the personnel to have good off-ball movers, cutters, athletes, shooters, then it makes it harder for you to play that way as well. And you also want to play a certain way that benefits your stars and is the way that they want to play. Because what a lot of people want is, and it's usually older fans, a little bit more of a structure, a system, a disciplinarian kind of style where you got to play this way and get in line with what the coach wants or you're out of here. And that's just not really how the NBA in 2025 works. With the power that the stars have, the player empowerment era, keeping stars happy and feeling good is one of the biggest parts of being a coach, more so in this era than ever before, because the stars are in high demand. Everybody knows it's a players' league now. Guys get traded and demand trades to certain teams and still get their wishes these days. Look no further than our own James Harden. So, you got to keep guys in line, and I think Ty Lue does a pretty good job of that. But I got to the bottom of it all, and that is that Tyronn Lue, the people that want him gone, a lot of them want James Harden gone. And BJ made a point to say that he and Kawhi aren't the right fit for one another because when you play through a ball-dominant, heliocentric point guard like Harden that's a pick-and-roll god, a one-man offense, and you're not working it through your best player enough, it feels like it's Harden's team and not Kawhi's team, and it's a power struggle. Now, not anything that Kawhi and Harden are beefing about, but BJ was saying he doesn't like that it feels like we're more of a pick and roll with Harden and Zoo team than a give it to Kawhi team. So I wanted to look at the data with that because I thought about it, and it goes back to my initial conversation about when I said I want this team. And this was right when Kawhi had come back and he still hadn't really found his footing. I said, are or are we need to get this team to become Kawhi's team before the playoffs, or else we're not going to do anything. And a lot of people attacked me in the comments and said, this is a non-conversation. It's just no one cares about that stuff. It could be Harden's team one night, it could be Kawhi's team one night. And I was saying you're not seeing the big picture. I'm talking about the approach to our offense. Who are we running more plays through? Who's touching the ball more? Who is like what's the obviously James Harden's going to have the ball in his hands the most, but what percentage of the time is the ball in James Harden's hands versus in Kawhi's? What's the disparity there? That matters. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at the teams that have, I don't know, maybe this is my fault for continuously putting him in the conversation with these guys, but it's just who he idolized. So when Kawhi is a guy that's a disciple of the Jordans and the Kobes, when you look at they played in the triangle, right? So they played in more of offensive systems based on movement and post-ups. That's not going to be something that happens in today's game because it doesn't generate enough threes, and usually you have to have two bigs out there for that, which is not today's basketball. But you can still run some concepts out of the triangle with Kawhi, which we saw in 2021 that Ty Lue implemented, and it was great. It was fantastic. But my thing is this. When it comes to Jordan and Kobe, in the years that I'm talking about 24 Kobe and then obviously Michael Jordan, they did have the ball the most. They were running it the most. However, I think those two are much better passers than Kawhi. So that's part of it, right? But overall, I think whose team this is a relevant conversation. So that's my takeaway here. This is a relevant conversation. You can't dismiss it. Yes, in theory, it's Kawhi's team, but I think BJ had a point, but it's not a Ty Lue point in my opinion. This is a James Harden point. Actually, no, it kind of is a Ty Lue point because if Ty Lue puts his foot down and says we got to run through Kawhi, and a lot of times Harden's just going to be more of a spot-up shooter, maybe we have Harden one pass away so then he can attack a closeout and then still make a play. I guess that would be pretty hard to guard. We saw some of that, and then them running pick and rolls with one another, you know what I mean, more. But the ideas of our team or our emphasis is let's get Kawhi 20-plus shots. We don't have Paul George anymore, so he shouldn't be under that number a lot. And if anything, if they're doubling hard, make them double hard with Kawhi. And then we get a good shot. The thing is, the dilemma is, what's the better source of offense in the regular season? Harden pick and rolls or Kawhi isolation? And I'd be tempted to say it's Harden pick and roll. And you're involving your third best player in that action directly, whereas with Kawhi, you're only involving one. So this is part of why the coaching staff was leaning into the James Harden pick and roll. So I know what you're wondering. Okay, but do you have any evidence? Like, what was the number, right? What was the usage percentage? What was that? I don't bother with usage percentage because that's a mathematic formula that's tailored to the shot takers. I looked at, and I did my research for this, the player touches, the time of possession. Take a listen to this. In 2023-24, I didn't count playoffs because that's a terrible estimation because Kawhi wasn't healthy. So in the regular season, in 2023-24 for our Clippers, where our offense was really good, James Harden had the ball for an average of 6.8 minutes per game, which is obviously first on our team by more than double the number two, which was Kawhi and Paul George and Westbrook in a three-way tie for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Or should I say 3 minutes and 20 seconds? Because 30, yeah, I think it's 3.3. It says 3.3. So mathematically, I would think 3 minutes and 20 seconds because it's a percentage, a third of the minute. So there was a three-way tie with Kawhi, Paul George, and Westbrook. James Harden has over double. That was last year, and our offense was good. But it goes back to the conversation of when we had Westbrook, right? First off, and I'll talk about this a little more later, but Kawhi and Paul George wanted a point guard, wanted a playmaker, wanted an elite passer. When we got Westbrook, I was like, okay, I kind of see what they mean. And it's still because Westbrook's not great offensively anymore. We run the ball through Paul George and Kawhi. And then Westbrook is going to have to find a way to make himself effective in the half court, which was the hardest part of having him. But there were really, again, some will disagree with me, and it was a small sample size, but in the games that we did have Paul George and Kawhi and Westbrook, we started off 0-5 with him, but then we picked it up. Then Paul George got hurt, and in the beginning of the following season, we looked pretty good. Small sample size again, and the front office and Lawrence Frank thought, Westbrook's not going to get us where we want to go. So that's a different conversation that I'm not here to have because we've had it way too much. But all I'm saying is I saw the vision of what Kawhi and Paul wanted, what it means bring another ball handler in there. But when Harden's name came up, I was like, that's going to mean we're going to really run through James Harden. Every team he's been through post D'Antoni, he has to control the ball. He's going to have the ball in his hands most. He's the point guard. He's going to run a million pick and rolls. He's going to be your table setter. But because he is so good offensively and has, he's one of the most incredible offensive players that we've ever seen in the league. Him being your third option, what does that really mean? Maybe third scoring option, but he's gonna run the show. And that means you're gonna have to have a lot of Harden pick and rolls. So when we got Harden, I'm like, is this the level? Like, is Paul George gonna complain that he's not in rhythm enough? And he's only a spot up shooter now? And it looked good till it didn't. And then he made comments on podcast speed, not playing the right brand of basketball. So look, playing with Harden is something. Some guys love it, some guys probably don't. Most guys have spoken out and said they like it. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, because they both play at a more methodical, slow pace, high IQ, and the body language that Kawhi has had towards James Harden, reacting to some of the things he's done, the amazing pictures I've had as thumbnails on this show that have been Harden and Kawhi having like a moment laughing together. They seem like they're a good fit for one another. So my conclusion is, I think they are a good fit for one another. However, I think there's something to be said about the fact that James Harden, whatever team he's on, is going to have the ball so much that are you going to really run through a guy like that? Like KD works a little quicker off the catch than Kawhi. Kawhi is a little bit more methodical. Now, that was the data from last year. So if you're wondering, what was it from this year? I didn't even think about the regular season because Kawhi didn't even really play. So in the playoffs, in those 7 games, Kawhi Leonard averaged 57 touches a game, James Harden 83, and then time of possession, Kawhi 4 minutes, 4.3, James Harden 8.1. So almost twice as much. So honestly, yeah, that's too much of a disparity. That is way too much. The data's right there. The data's right there. And time of possession doesn't mean that sometimes that could just be Harden bringing up the ball and passing. But I think it all matters more than usage and how many plays you're directly running to them. That might be a different number, but it's how long the ball's in Harden's hands, which has always been something that I say about not just Harden, but that style of player. And I think the takeaway is we need to make real adjustment next year in giving the ball to Kawhi more and living and dying with those results, because in the playoffs, we're going to have to live and die with him. Harden might be better for the regular season, those pick and rolls. But running through him and Zubats and being like a post-up ISO team, I think that's a better bet than being, but when I say ISO, though, get him the ball beneath the foul line. Get him the ball, nail, not so much top of the key. Just lean into it a little more. I think that's our best bet if we're going to be a Kawhi team, because it was a little too... There was a little bit of a power struggle. I do agree with BJ. We still got the right shots off, but we are complaining, me included, me being the forefront of it, too many possessions where we don't have Kawhi shooting the basketball. So, anyway, coming up, though, going to be talking about, is there anyone that's better than James Harden right now to have next to Kawhi? Should we look to not bring him back? Going to be talking about that coming up. Olipop is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda but want something that supports their health, which is 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke or 44 grams in an orange Fanta. Olipop flips the script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like Ollie Smart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. I like Olipop, honestly. I've only had the grape one, but I really like it. And once I input my address to Locked On, I should be getting some Olipop to give you an even better description of how good it is, because it's been a minute, but it was good. I thought, it was definitely worth the purchase. Get a free can of Olipop. Just buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so talking about if James Harden is a good fit next to Kawhi Leonard. Well, I'll say this. When James Harden came to this team, 26-5 stretch, and for me, just being unbiased, the best stretch of basketball that I've seen the Clippers play ever, because it just felt like we couldn't lose. It felt like it would take so much for us to lose one game because we had three stars. We had what felt like a super team. And you have Westbrook coming off the bench, giving us a burst. Norman Powell coming off the bench. And Harden was just playing so well. And Kawhi was playing so well. And Paul was hitting shots. So it felt like there was a vision there where, yeah, this is going to let Kawhi and Paul George relax. This is going to let them play a little harder defensively. This is going to let Paul George not have to dribble the air out of the ball and take stupid shots. But you still live and die with Harden to a degree. And if you remember why we dipped into the fourth seed, even though we were the first seed at one point, we were 34-15. It was because James Harden kind of slowed down and looked fatigued and, was turning the ball over a lot and just not hitting the shots like he was in that stretch of the season where we were cooking Boston on the road and cooking Indiana and he was doing snow angels on the ground. So James Harden made the Clippers better the first year. There's no doubt about it. This year, we wouldn't have survived without Harden. So let me just make 2 points. When it comes to Kawhi Leonard fans and people that are criticizing Harden for not being the guy that we should have next to Kawhi, you know why Harden's the best guy next to Kawhi? Because the biggest flaw of Kawhi Leonard is his unavailability. And James Harden is an absolute engine, and an engine that keeps on going, regular season after regular season. So me as a Clipper fan, a guy that still doesn't love the James Harden experience because of just basketball, like, what do you call it? Convictions, you can say, thinks it's ridiculous for fans of Kawhi Leonard that are really just Clipper fans because of Kawhi and want Ty Lue or Harden gone or both. It's crazy for that crowd of people to say anything about Harden when Kawhi Leonard still would have never played a playoff game in front of Clipper fans with a sold-out crowd, fully healthy, if it weren't for Harden. If it weren't for Harden backpacking this season, creating shots for us night in, night out, playing 35-plus minutes a game, and having an all-NBA season. It's completely unfair. Kawhi Leonard needs James Harden to get him through the regular season grind. Because I don't believe if you bring in like a role player that's good, like a Malcolm Brogdon or a Drew Holiday, let's say, who's awesome. I love him, but still. Are we going to be a decent offense with that guy plus Kawhi Leonard throughout the course of an 82-game season being our primary shot creators? And then I guess Zoo? I think we could be a great defense. I think we'd be pretty dangerous in the playoffs. But is Kawhi Leonard going to have the legs for the playoffs after carrying the offense for that long? It's like, who's better out there than Kawhi Leonard for James Harden? You want to downgrade to an all-star? To a non-all-star, I should say, like a role player that really would take a back seat? First of all, Malcolm Brogdon is an injury waiting to happen. So whoever's talking about that is crazy. Someone like Tyus Jones, I mean, that's disrespectful to James Harden, in my opinion, because you're not going to win with Tyus Jones. And if you think you're not going to win with James Harden, I think you'll get much closer with James Harden, the much better player. So James Harden's not going anywhere. Kawhi Leonard needs him, quite frankly. Needs him, in my opinion, just to get through the regular season. If you're talking about the playoffs, like maybe you could have some... I mean, I don't even know who I'd say. Who's a good role player that you could replace the Clippers with in the playoffs alone, and that would say I would be more confident in us winning a title than with Harden? I don't know about Drew Holiday after this past season. And especially when we have Chris Dunn, who's like a very poor man's Drew Holiday, really poor man's. I don't really know who you could think that's better for this team and for Kawhi. I do agree that there's some validity to the Harden, whatever team he's on, plays through him, and it's to an absurd amount. He dribbles a lot, and a lot of it's the ball in his hands. He still will create a great shot for you every time down, though, which a lot of guys in the league won't, regardless of how much everyone's touching the ball and how many assists your team is having. Overall, he will still generate a good shot at the end of the day. And that's all that some people care about. I'm not one of those people, but there's a lot of people that just care about the end result, regardless of the process of it all. And he does an amazing job. As far as players in the history of basketball, I mean, I have a lot to learn and watch from the past because I was born in 98 and I don't hide that. But as far as my time watching basketball, I mean, LeBron James, Steve Nash, Chris Paul, James Harden, and I guess Luka would probably be at the top of my list. And it comes to just guarantee that you can create a good shot every single time down the floor because his passing is just that good and his scoring is just that good to leverage it out, I guess. Those guys can get you a good shot every single time down to a higher level than I think anyone that I've seen. And then you have some new guys like the Trae Youngs, the Cades that want to be them and stuff, but they were special. They're special in getting that done. And James Harden is one of those guys. So you want to run your offense through him. But no team has ever won the championship running their offense through him. And of course, everyone's going to say, well, if Chris Paul hadn't gotten hurt, 2018 would have been that year. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, man. There's a lot of years. If we hadn't lost Kawhi in 2021, we might have a ring now. So, like, it happens. I'm just going off what has happened. And that's not this James Harden anymore anyway, so it's a moot point. But to all the Kawhi fans that are blaming Ty Lue, a lot of it's James Harden. It's criticisms of James Harden. He lets him walk the ball up the floor. He lets him dribble the air out of the ball. It's like, dude, every coach lets him do this because that's James Harden. That's who he is. And he's produced a lot of results playing that way. I get it, though. People want a championship, and they don't think James Harden's the guy for that. Totally understandable, but who's better right now for this team? I don't think anyone. So that's my take. There's nobody better for this team than Harden right now for Kawhi with his unavailability, and you just never know what can happen. Now, coming up, though, is this just too much to appease Kawhi Leonard? I'm going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and the Thunder are down 2-1, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game winner or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And right now, looking at FanDuel, the odds for the finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder are still minus 240. So if you want to bet on the Pacers, now is the time. And Tyrese Halliburton is plus 310 for the Finals MVP, and it's looking like a decent bet right now. And right now, he's showing up in the big moment. Game winner in Game 1, I would take a bet on Halliburton. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So, talking about, are James Harden and Kawhi Leonard a good fit for each other? I think they're a good fit for each other. I understand where people are coming from when it comes to the balance. They feel like with James Harden, the ball runs through him more and it becomes a Harden team as opposed to a Kawhi, get the ball to him a lot team. But I also think that James Harden's the perfect guy for Kawhi because Kawhi is the least reliable least reliable star in the league when it comes to health. I mean, you can debate Joel Embiid or whoever else in the comments, but I probably won't be answering those. Now, here's my thing, right? This entire Kawhi Leonard experience, it's just been, and you can include Paul George in this as well. It's just too much. It's just too much demanding things, and it's never worked out. And it's like the only people that are suffering to me are the fans. And let me explain what I mean by this. So again, we loved, and I want to acknowledge this too. I get it. Fans are not the most knowledgeable basketball people. We're all emotional, including me. And what we think is best for the team isn't always the most informed stuff and most informed opinions. There are people that are in there that have had more experience around basketball than us. And for certain people, will have more experience in basketball at a high level than I ever will have in my life. Now, that being said, let's just look at things. I think the fan base does matter because that's ultimately who you're selling to. 2018-19 Clippers were one of the most beloved teams in the history of the franchise. I fell in love with them just like everyone else, and I was thousands of miles away. I had people, Celtics fans, saying that this was a likable team, watching them at like 12:30 at night on the East Coast. This team was special. Now, the thing is, they didn't really sell out like that unless it was a big game or, of course, in the playoffs. So that's the thing. We didn't have a star like that. But it just felt like we were one star away. one star away. Lou Williams was playing like a star in the playoffs in 2019 and the second half of the season. Montrez was playing at a super high level. We had a budding star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then another guy in Gallinari who was averaging 18 on efficient shooting. And great role players like Pat Bev, Mike Scott, Zoo, who was growing as well. God. And so obviously what tripped me out was when I was like, man, if we could actually get Kawhi, because I was sad when we traded Tobias Harris. I was like, that was so messed up. Having the best season of his career, loving life in LA probably, but it's like we're trying to get a bigger fish. And I'm like, the Clippers are trying to get a bigger fish. Like, you serious? We don't get big fish like that. And when I actually heard that, Kawhi was looking into us, I was like, oh my God, if you add Kawhi to this team, SGA, Pat Bev, Kawhi, Zubats, Mo Harkless starting lineup, and then and Gallo starting lineup, and then off the bench, you had Shamit, Mike Scott, or not Mike Scott, JaMychal Green, and Lou Will and Trez. I mean, super good 9-man rotation. Would that have been enough to win a championship? Probably not. But it would have been great to see how far we were not rocking the boat too much, especially because you had SGA and Zoo as well, and gaining another year of experience, and you still had the old guard of Lou, Mo Harkless had been in some series at the time, Gallo, Montrez. It would have been a good experiment to see, and we would have had way more flexibility. Even if SGA increased his worth, we could have then traded him and given up less because people would have seen, oh, okay, he's good. He went from 10 points a game, now he's averaging 16. So, okay, he's going to be getting better for sure. Imagine if you gave him his own team. And then you had, more draft capital, of course. We wouldn't have had given it up. So that was a big mistake. Then that first year, everybody was saying, we don't have a traditional point guard to give Kawhi Leonard and Paul George the ball in their spots. In my opinion, that's not why we lost in 7 games to the Nuggets. I think Glenn Rivers made some mistakes, leaving Montrezl Harrell out there against Jokic for sure. I think Kawhi Leonard did not close the series into Game 7. He was awful. In the second half of Game 6, he was no good as well. And Paul George was no good as well throughout the entirety of the playoffs. And we blew double-digit leads in 3 consecutive games. At that point, there's nobody that's exempt. Maybe Zubats, if anyone. But it was a disgrace. So, point guards, I don't know if that was the case in 2020. But in 2021, we still were not achieving what we wanted to in the regular season. And they said, okay, let's go out and get a point guard. Rondo. I was ecstatic about this move. I was a Rondo fan as a kid. Like, I looked up to him. And in the regular season, he was amazing. In games 3 and 4 at Dallas, he was really good. And then he kind of showed he was washed and hasn't really shown anything since then. He no longer had the speed to make up for his lack of a jump shot. And everybody knew he was going to pass when he got into the paint. And he wasn't trying as hard on defense and the rebounding side of things. So he wasn't helping at all. And then eventually he didn't play anymore. But he was so bad he didn't end up playing. But I thought the idea was there. The blueprint was there. But we still made it to the conference finals with Reggie Jackson as our point guard. And to this day, everyone says, we didn't need a point guard. We just needed some health. Because Kawhi, had he been healthy, would have won the whole thing. So then in 2023, we're like, oh, we need a point guard. I don't know if we needed a point guard, more so than that Reggie Jackson was so bad in the beginning of the 2023 season, or just in the 2023 season. He was just so bad. And I love Reggie. But like, I think we just needed a better point guard than that. I don't think it was this. But again, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George allegedly, from everything that we've been told from the media, they've wanted a point guard since day one to make their lives easier and get them the ball in their spot so they can play off ball a little bit more and not have to handle the ball as much. However, Paul George goes on podcast on All the Smoke before the 2020-2021 season, after the bubble, saying that Glenn Rivers was using him like a JJ Redick, coming off too many screens, and he wasn't having the ball in his hands as much. So then the next year, Ty Lue empowered him and made him and Kawhi basically point forwards, and then Reggie handled the ball a little bit as well. And the results were great. So I didn't see that coming, where he empowered Paul George. Ty Lue did, with the ball in his hands. But then everybody was like, oh, in 2023, he's been through some more injuries. He's 2 years older. He can't do it anymore. That was when he was complaining that, bringing the ball up against Drew Holiday, that's not comfortable. It makes me tired. So it was implying that he wanted a point guard, and then he publicly advocated for Westbrook. So they were like, okay, that's the guy. So I'm like, I remember if you listen to my podcast before we got Russ, I was like, please no, like he's not coming off playing good basketball. He has his flaws in the playoffs too. We've seen he and Paul George perform in the playoffs together. It was not good. They both underachieved individually, in my opinion, regardless of the injuries that they were dealing with when they were playing. You were on the court. You got to make it happen. Um, it's not like they did. It's not like they had bad games in that series every single game. So they had the ability to play well. So Paul and Russ Westbrook together again, I'm like, okay, you're just putting a lot on Kawhi being that dude, because when guys show you what they're like in big moments over and over again, it's like, when do you run out of times or you're like, let's give this guy another chance? It's just the context around them and not the guy themselves. That's a conversation for another day with Russ and Paul. I think every Clipper fan knows that Paul and Russ on your team, it's not a strong chance of winning a title, regardless of the role that they're in. And I'm a Russ fan saying that. And I say the same thing about Harden, though, but there's still people that believe that we can do it with him or that he can do it given the right role. Honestly, when James Harden swallows his pride one day and wants to be a sixth man, he's not in that position right now because he's still an All NBA player. Make that clear. Clip that part. He's still an All NBA player. But when that time comes, and he wants to be a sixth man. He might win if that time ever comes. He might win a ring. Westbrook, we've seen he tried it this year in Denver. He went through some injuries. I had to rewatch that Thunder series. I didn't see every game, actually. It was been really busy with all the moving. But point being, I don't want to make it about Westbrook and Paul George. The point is, they went for a point guard. It was Westbrook. But apparently the front office didn't like him. So they gave him Harden. And I guess they like Harden. It's just like, it's all to appease Kawhi. He got to the playoffs healthy. And it didn't go great. So now we got to go get some more stuff or more players along the margins and fine-tune the roster, or maybe we'll make a big splash. I don't know. But the point is, it's just too much. Like, I need this guy, I need that guy. Like, if James Harden's not, my point is this. If James Harden's not the guy for Kawhi, then, like, who is? Because how many point guards have we cycled through at this point? And if you ask Kawhi Leonard, I truly don't know what he'd say. But based on his body language, I don't know what he thinks after this playoffs. But before this postseason, it felt like he loved playing with James. So, and next year is going to be Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, I think, on this Clippers team. So anybody that wants to go a different direction there, I don't know about that. And the same with Ty Lue, I don't know about that either. But there is a question to be asked. Can Kawhi Leonard be the number one option in the championship team still? That'll be my episode next. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video, and all things Clippers basketball this offseason. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.